Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. I've had a wonderful ride here. It's Catalina Island off in the distance, Pacific Ocean. Found this little park and wanted to tell you about the PEGASUS Premio Nu. And the Nu stands for NuVinci. We've got the N360, which is kind of an in-between model for them. They have an N330 with up to 330 degrees of shifting options, 360 and then 380. And now the 380, they're kind of calling it NViolo. They moved away from NuVinci cycling to NViolo powered by NuVinci. It's kind of interesting what's been going on there. But the drive system and the drivetrain are really complementary for this particular bike. PEGASUS is a relatively new brand for me, but they've been around since the late 1980s in Germany. And they are really dedicated to safety and community development in terms of cycling infrastructure. So they have some board members, one of whom used to be a CEO at Porsche, the car company. So that's pretty neat. Really high level of quality with the components here that I'm seeing. In particular, the Magura HS11. These are fully adjustable, tool-free adjustable, so you can bring them back a little bit. Hydraulic rim brakes. Okay, you're probably familiar with hydraulic disc brakes. I see those on a lot of mountain bikes, and actually in this case we've got the Bulls. This is the Crosslite Evo, very similar model, and Bulls is actually the parent company of PEGASUS now. They bought them about a decade ago. So you can see this one has hydraulic disc brakes. They still work great, but in the case of rim brakes, they might not get banged up at the rack quite as easily. A lot of times if you like pull your bike into a bike rack and they're the metal bars and stuff, those can kind of bump the disc brake rotors and create sort of a wobble or a sound where you get kind of scraping going on. So rim brakes are really popular in Europe, and it's neat to see them brought over on this model. I'll be reviewing a few PEGASUS models. The idea is that they're bringing some options that are really oriented towards urban, kind of neighborhood use, something that's really quiet. We've got the Gates carbon belt drive with CDX, the center track, so it's not going to come off. There's no derailleur hanging down in the rear. We've got that continuously variable planetary hub. So this is neat. It can be shifted at standstill. It's stepless, so it's not like gear 1, gear 2, gear 3. It's just this fluid shifting that is really powerful when, especially you pair it with a mid-drive like this. We've got Bosch Performance Line CX. The badge on that is incorrect. So CX is their high torque motor. It's going to give you that extra power for climbing. Maybe you're someone who weighs a little bit more, or you're carrying some extra gear on this rack. Really like the rack. Actually, this is Carry More, but it's iRack compatible. So it's got this little kind of clicker thing here for special accessories. It also has a spring latch and then those pannier hangers on the side, in addition to this little SKS rookie pump. So just fully outfitted here. We've got an integrated backlight, integrated headlight from Fushan. This is 100 lux. Pretty nice light. I feel like, sometimes it's nice to have the light mounted up here versus down here, because in this case it's actually connected to the lowers of the suspension on the arch, so it could bounce up and down a little bit, but it keeps this area a little bit cleaner. Maybe that won't get bumped quite as easily, and it's also wired in, which is nice. It's got some windows on the sides, which is cool, so you can see from not just the front but from the side. You'll be more visible to cars. Reflective sidewall stripes on the tires, which is nice because this is sort of a glossy cobalt blue frame color with orange and silver accents. I saw this at Interbike and I was thinking, hey, Broncos colors, because I was raised in Colorado, and I think they match. They look really nice, but it is a darker color, right? So having those reflective accents is really nice. And then these pedals too, these are kind of unique. They're Welgo. They've got sort of a resin plastic body. They're a little bit wider, and they've got this traction grip tape, almost like a skateboard, which is cool. So coming back to what this offers over maybe some of the Bulls models or something you've seen from another company, really high performance, reliable drive system, a really quiet, clean, durable belt versus a chain. You've got the NuVinci continuously variable hub, and then a lot of comfort upgrades. So these tires are 28 by 1.75, so 28, that's a little bit wider. They create a lower attack angle, which makes it possible to span cracks or overcome little bumps I'm not sure I would choose this bike for riding on gravel, but I wanted to try it here, and I thought this was a nice location to film, so I went for it. And the 1.75, that's a little bit wider, so these are efficient. They're going to be great for commuting. They're going to roll, have that nice rolling momentum, but a little bit more air volume for comfort, and then traction and stability if you do happen to go on a trail like this. They've been working okay. And then we've got a spring suspension fork up here. This is just 63 millimeters of travel. It does have compression lockout here. So if you're someone who's experiencing a little bit of bob or dive when you brake, you can lock it out. But I personally like to leave it unlocked most of the time because I'm fairly lightweight and I want the comfort. Now under this cap, there is preload adjust. You just have to kind of pop it off and then kind of dial it in a little bit based on your weight so you can preload that spring. So if you're bottoming out or something, you can adjust that. That's nice. Tapered head tube, really nice stem. It's kind of a high rise, 0 to 60 degrees, so you can adjust that angle. And then we've got these swept back bars and these nice ergonomic grips with lockers, so they aren't going to spin. I already mentioned these hydraulic disc brakes, but I love that they're like 4-finger. They really give you a lot to grab onto, and you can bring them back or put them out depending on your hand size, which is great. You got a little flick bell. There's the shifter we were talking about, so you can shift at standstill, and there's a little infographic. So, you know, if it looks like it's a hill, that means you're in a low gear. It's going to help you climb. If it looks like it's flat, it means, okay, I want to go faster and I'm on the flats. So it's kind of a higher gear, like more challenging, more energy intensive to pedal, but potentially going to higher top speeds. You know, I talked about the Bosch motor a minute ago. This thing supports you up to 120 RPM, so that's 120 pedal strokes per minute. Some of the other motors, especially like the Bosch Active line, a little bit more affordable, a little bit lighter weight. This is about 8.8 pounds. Active line motors, they only support you to 100 or 105 if it's the Active Line Plus. So I'm a big fan of the Performance Line CX. It's just nice. It might be overkill in this situation, but on the other hand, why not have the extra power if you can get it, especially with a higher capacity 500 watt-hour battery pack. But before we get to that, I just want to talk about, you know, how this hub is mounted. You can see there's like this horizontal sliding situation so that it can tighten that belt. 24 teeth on the rear sprocket as well as the belt ring or the chain ring. And then they've got this nice plastic kind of a cover. Just like these plastic SKS fenders, it's just going to keep you cleaner. And maybe if you're pedaling and you're on the wave frame right here, you're not going to get your dress or your pant legs caught and maybe greasy or dirty. So I really appreciate that. They do make this bike frame in 4 different sizes across 3 different frame styles. So what we're looking at here is the Wave step-through. It's the most approachable, just super easy to come and stand over this thing like that. If you've got hip or maybe knee sensitivity, this is a great option, but the frame isn't quite as stiff. And so if you weigh a lot more and you're really pedaling or you're going faster, the frame gets a little bit of flex going on. That's just kind of the name of the game. You can see that they've tried really hard here with the extra thick tubing and then the extra mini top tube right here to try and reinforce it and reduce frame flex as much as possible. All the weight from the battery and the motor are low in center, which is great, but especially if you start to load that rack up and stuff, you get a little bit more flex going on. If you're concerned about frame flex, you could get the trapeze or mid-step frame that you see over here, and it would look very much like this. Again, Bulls and Pegasus, same parent company. There are some shared components, maybe even frames across these two. I prefer that frame style myself. It's a little bit more masculine, and you still get a fairly low standover height, just not quite as low as the Wave. Apparently this is the most popular though, so just keep that in mind. This is a Class 1 electric bike. It only goes up to 20 miles per hour, and for me, at those speeds, I feel fine. I've been able to ride with no hands just to kind of test it and you shake the bike. It's fine, but when you start going down bigger hills, which we have been doing on the way here, if you're not on those brakes and you start getting really fast, it feels a little less stiff and secure than the mid-step or the high-step frame. Okay, so coming back to comfort, I love that they've got that suspension fork, higher volume tires. We've got this nice gel saddle from Selle Royal, a little bit wider, and it's got these scuff guards on the side, which is great. And then we've got a suspension seat post. The diameter on this is 30 millimeters, which is kind of unique. It's about 300 millimeters long. You can bring it up or take it down. I'm on the small size frame here, by the way. This is a 45, so I've raised it a little bit so I can get full leg extension. I love the bumpers. I love the suspension. This is actually, it also has like a little preload adjust at the bottom. There's a little bolt you can tighten or loosen. Very similar to this. It does sort of the same thing. And then I want to compliment the kickstand that they chose. This is heavy, and you can just twist that end piece and it sort of goes lower or higher. So it's tool-free, adjustable. And that's nice. You can see I've got it on this little piece of stick that I found out here just because I want the bike to look perfect, just like straight up and down for the photos and everything. It's nice to have that because so many other kickstands from Pletcher and Standwell, they require a tool to adjust, and sometimes you're in your garage, or maybe you take it to a friend's house. You can just get down there and twist it and kind of bring your bike into a position where it's going to be less likely to tip over. So yeah, I think that's a good overview. You know, this is the kind of bike that you could ride around your neighborhood. You could use it for some commuting. Maybe it's your urban car replacement. You do have a great capacity here to work with. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how the motor works and then get to the battery. So there's a little magnet right here on the spoke, and then a little sensor. So it's measuring your rear wheel speed. It's also measuring your pedal cadence, like how quickly you're spinning, and then how hard you're pushing, pedal torque. It's measuring all three of those signals over 1,000 times per second, which is really nice. Now I want to mention that even though this is using a belt and continuously variable transmission, that Bosch does listen for shifting, and they have the motor try to ease off a little bit. So it's definitely one of the nicer systems. It's very responsive. I just feel like the drivetrain here is great, but you'll notice that it's using this bubble kind of plastic casing compared to over here with the Bulls. This motor's kind of tipped up. It's a little bit more sporty. And then they've got this aluminum alloy shield on the bottom versus plastic. So I kind of like that style. I like that you've got bottle cage bosses here on this frame, so there's a little bit more utility. And I feel like, again, they've reinforced it so that hopefully, there's not going to have that frame flex. This bike is $46.99, so it's a little bit more expensive, but on the other hand, you're getting a top-of-the-line motor, a Power Tube 500, so it's a high-capacity battery, a great warranty, and then the distribution and dealer support that Bulls already has and is growing in North America, so that's cool. Definitely appreciate that. The weight on this bike is closer to that 64-pound mark, so it's definitely a little bit heavier, especially considering that these are plastic fenders, and they might rattle around a little bit more. I mean, it hasn't been a big problem, but they do attach on multiple points here in several places, so it's actually doing pretty well. But listen to this. You know, it's plastic, so plastic can kind of bounce back. It's not going to get dinged as easily, and it's lightweight, but there is a little bit more chatter at times. So I don't know, kind of keep that in mind. There's always a little bit of trade-off to consider. Up here we have 14-gauge spokes, black. They match the rims. Notice the machine sidewalls, and that's because of those rim brakes again. And in the back we have 13-gauge spokes, so a little bit thicker, hopefully handling the extra forces of the motor, and then spoked into that nice NuVinci continuously variable hub down at the bottom. So yeah, I think that's about it. This is how if you had to do some maintenance on the rear wheel, you can pull up on this silver lever, and then it allows you to sort of spread those brake pads a little bit and then do some wheel service. In the back we have a 10mm axle, no quick release, but we do have quick release up front, which could be kind of handy if you needed to move this bike. I would probably take the battery off. The power tube does weigh a little bit more. Some of the older bikes have the plastic power pack from Bosch, Power Pack 500. It's like 5.7 pounds, whereas this is 6.3. And then when you've got this aluminum alloy shield, it adds even more weight, so it's about 7.2 pounds. So coming back to why does this bike weigh a little bit more? Oh, it's got the reinforcement for strength. It's got the fenders, the racks, the suspension, all this stuff, a bigger handlebar, adjustable stem, and then the battery that does weigh a little bit more, but looks really nice. And I do have the keys in my pocket here. I kind of want to show you what this looks like, but to be honest with you, it's been a little bit tricky to work with for me. So you can see how this key looks, AXA. Just insert it right here like this, and you really have to push in and then turn. So I was pushing against that little rubber grommet, and it's right next to it. So there's a little bit more effort there required. And I'm gonna take it out because I don't want to forget these. And the battery starts to pop down. Maybe it's a little bit tight. Yeah, it kind of pops out like that. But it doesn't come all the way out. There's a little button here that you have to press right here, and then that allows it to come a little bit further out. It's hard to do with one hand while I'm filming. There we go. And now it would come all the way out. So that's sort of what it looks like. You can charge it on or off the bike, which is nice. I'm gonna try to get this back on. Come on, there we go. Nice, got it. It's always fun trying to do this while filming. You could charge that battery on or off the bike. I do recommend storing it in a cool, dry location, and then maybe at about 50% if you know you're not going to be using it for a while, just so it doesn't stress the cells. You got a little charging port here on the side. If you're plugged in, just keep in mind that the pedal, the crank arm, kind of passes right by that plug port. Bosch has this nice proprietary plug interface that's not super delicate, but it could still kind of get snagged if you're walking the bike around. So just, you know, be conscious of that. And sometimes this little rubber cover doesn't fit perfectly. I've experienced similar things with the Bulls bikes. I want to get those covers just right so you don't get dust and water in there. And then here we go. This is the charger. So this weighs about 1.7 pounds, but it's a 4 amp charger, so it's faster than average. A lot of e-bike chargers is 2 amps. And then there's that proprietary Bosch interface. They do a really good job. I like this charger a whole lot, and especially with a higher capacity battery. You know, it's 36 volts, 13.4 amp hours, and I'm estimating you could get between 30 and 85 miles per charge, which is pretty great. You know, it's definitely efficient, especially if you shift gears appropriately and you empower yourself with that nice drivetrain. You know, if we were comparing this with like a cassette derailleur, it would be something like 11 to 40 tooth. So that's, you know, 0 to 360 degrees, again, equivalent to 11 to 40, which is not bad. It's not bad, but there is additional weight there as well. It's about 5.5 pounds for a NuVinci hub versus 1 to 2 pounds for a hub or a cassette and derailleur, probably about 1.5 pounds. So you're significant weight there. But again, the benefits are pretty sweet. They perform well. When you're ready to go, you're all charged up. Just press the power button here on the top of the Purion display panel. Comes to life very quickly. We're in miles per hour right now, but we could switch to kilometers by holding minus and tapping power. I'm going to switch back. We got speed, assist level in the middle, a little battery infographic, and if you want to turn the lights on, you hold plus. So go ahead and do that. Let's check out that headlight. Yeah, you can already see how it's shining out the sides, which is really nice. And then in the back, let's take a look at this. Looks like there's just one LED, but you've got a nice large reflective surface. So, you know, kind of gets the job done. Here we are. There's the battery infographic with 5 ticks, so those are 20% increments. It'd be nice if that was battery percentage, and Bosch does have a new Kiox color display, but they aren't speccing it on this bike. Actually, a lot of bikes are kind of sticking with Purion or Intuvia just to save some money. You're not able to remove this display. It can swivel a little bit to reduce glare, and it looks like there's this micro USB port, but that's not for charging. It's only for diagnostics, which is too bad. I've been complaining about that for years. Okay, so on the bottom of this display is walk mode, but it only works if you're in assist levels, you know, 1 through 4, basically, and we are right now. So I'm gonna press walk, and then I hold plus. Look at that, bike just takes off. This is really handy if you're in a place like maybe a park where it's not appropriate to ride, or you've got this thing loaded up with gear. Maybe you've got like a child seat adapter or something. It's nice that they left that enabled. Okay, so we're back here at the display. There are some other readouts that are worth exploring. If we hold the plus button or the minus button for a second, it takes us from assist to trip distance, so 2. And if we want to clear that, we hold plus and minus. We hold it again, and it says, okay, total distance, 2 miles. It's basically a brand new bike. Range, 29 miles. So remember when I was saying I think the range is like 30 to 85 miles? We already rode like a couple miles today to get here. And I'm in turbo. I'm like in the highest level of assist, 30 miles-ish. And if I go all the way down to eco, 59 miles. That's interesting to me because I've seen it before much, much higher. But it does depend on how you're riding and stuff. So, you know, if you're really relying on that motor, or if you're a heavier person, maybe it's windy or there's hills, the Bosch system is factoring that all in over the past mile, which is pretty cool. It's very dynamic that way. And normally it would go Eco Tour. Instead of Sport, it would say EMTB, because remember, this has the Bosch CX motor. So this sample unit is not spec'd perfectly. But I think you still get the point. And of course, I'll try my best to answer questions and comments back at the site, ElectricBikeReview.com. We got a nice little forum section set up for Pegasus, and I toured some of the other models and spoke with the people from Bulls at Interbike, because again, this is a new brand for me. So it's neat to see. I'm excited about all the high quality stuff coming over from Europe, and even though to me this still feels kind of expensive, this will be their value brand. They'll bring in some other products that are Pegasus that are a little bit more affordable but still higher quality, something you can rely on. I definitely appreciate that. Okay guys, time for that ride test. I'm just gonna stow the kickstand and wish me luck. I'm on the dirt paths here with the sort of skinny tires. It can be a little bit precarious. And I am in turbo mode, just to get that extra help. No problem. Oh boy. It's actually pretty satisfying. Not having problem at all here. Now this could be a little bit trickier. See, there's big like rocks over here. And this is gonna be, I think my tires are gonna kind of sink in a little bit more. But with the suspension seat post and that gel saddle, it feels pretty comfortable. Doing okay. The nice thing with that assist is that I only have to focus on balancing, not really pushing super hard. And then look at this hill. And that's quite the steep one, but I don't think we're gonna have any problem. Not bad at all. Doing just fine. I do have sensitive knees, so to be able to climb something like this with a little bit of help makes it more fun to ride. I'm more likely to hop on and go for a ride. Looks like I'm just going 6 miles per hour. Feels fine. I haven't even shifted gears. It's just a nice comfortable cadence right here. There we go. And maybe we'll put those brakes to test here on the way down. Ready for that? That's where we were. Look at that beautiful park. Wow, Malibu way out in the distance. Very nice. Complete stop, and that was single-handed. That was just using my front brake right there. No problem. Very good, very good. Okay guys, you've got a nice view of the rear hydraulic rim brake, the belt cover, and then the 24-tooth chain ring or belt ring, and 24-tooth sprocket. It's interesting to see those matched. A lot of times they're slightly different in terms of sizing. I'm gonna pedal along, and I'm gonna dynamically change the gearing ratio, and you'll hear the motor mostly. You can't really, there's not a lot that happens down here. There's no derailleur that's going to get bumped. It's all very durable, and there's no recommended service like interval for the NuVinci. It's just sort of set it and forget it, which I think is really cool. It's very tough. But anyway, as I change the gearing ratio, you'll hear the motor sort of like based on how fast it's spinning. So that's pretty cool. You know, I talked about the 120 RPM support. It's a little bit unique. That 24-tooth cog in the front, it's rotating at 2.5 revolutions for every crank revolution. So, you know, 1 pedal revolution, that chain ring's going 2.5 times. That means it can be a little bit smaller, gives you really good retention on the belt or chain. But there is a little bit of friction introduced because of that reduction gearing system. So to be completely fair, if you're pedaling this unassisted, maybe you're just running the bike with the lights and you're in 0 assist, or if you're going above 20 miles per hour, that's the maximum top speed, a little bit of friction there. It's going to add a little bit of work. In my experience, it's not super noticeable, but the NuVinci is also, it feels a little sluggish sometimes, like you're just sort of working. There's this traction fluid inside. That's part of why it weighs a little bit more. And when there's kind of these orbs, and there's like this pivot system. So the input speed versus the output speed into the wheel, as that pivot tilts, that's what gives you the continuously variable speeds. However, there's the traction fluid, and I think there's like a break-in period that some of the shops have told me about that's like 500 miles. So at first it might feel a little sluggish. It's not too bad when you've got motor support, but if you pedaled this unassisted, remember, a 64-pound bike, you notice it a little bit more. So, you know, give it some time. And I think over time, it starts to loosen up a little bit and feels a little bit more efficient. So enough said. I'm going to hop on this thing, stow the kickstand. I am still in turbo mode, so the motor's going to be fairly pronounced. I'm just going to pedal along and change gears. little bit of sliding out going on there because I don't have any knobs on those tires. They're fairly slick, but they worked pretty well. And yeah, I think you could hear the motor doing its thing. I'm definitely impressed with the performance of these bikes. I like how they look, and I think it's the kind of bike that you could get and rely on. I mean, those tires, they're rated for up to 50 kilometers per hour. They're e-bike specific. Not only are they reflective, but they've got like puncture protective lining, which is really nice. I appreciate this like sort of upright comfort position because my neck and shoulders and arms get a little bit sensitive riding around a lot. So this is the kind of bike you can enjoy over longer distances. And that's pretty cool. Once this car goes by, I'm gonna go a little bit faster. I'm also gonna show you the frame flex thing. Here we go. If I kind of shake the bike a little bit, there's a little bit of, just a little bit of flex going on. Not a whole lot, but it might be worth trading off if you're someone who's, you just want that low step design. There we go. I'll do some no hands. Feeling very stable even when I try to kind of bounce it out of position. Very nice. Well guys, I think that's about it. I welcome your feedback about Pegasus. Maybe you try this out, or maybe you're in Germany and you've seen this brand for many years, 30 years. I welcome your feedback as well. Have fun out there, and as always, ride safe.